Darlington blown a potential fourth-round tie against their mighty north-east neighbours Newcastle. After all, they were 2-0 up and they missed 2 penalties. Their opening goal was drilled in by Neil Wainwright. But how about this? First, Brian Atkinson saw his penalty saved by keeper Mark Tyler and the follow-up. But the officials weren't happy and ordered the penalty to be retaken. Different taker, Barry Conlon, still no goal. But it didn't seem to have mattered when they scored again on the hour mark. Conlon making up for his penalty skyscraper. But any hopes of that north-east derby certainty were dashed when the home crowd of around 7,000 watched Peterborough draw level. 7 minutes after Conlon's goal, Dave Farrell made it 2-1. And eventually Darlington's nerves and Peterborough's pressure paid off with a penalty. Jimmy Bullard ensured these two sides will meet again at Peterborough next Monday.
Tonight, Darlington have a second chance to earn themselves a big money FA Cup clash with Newcastle. The Quakers go to Peterborough for a third-round replay, having thrown away a 2-goal lead when the teams met at Feethams last week. And they did the same thing again on Saturday.
The Quakers couldn't ask for more than this. A goal up just before half-time. Paul Heckingbottom with the final touch. Into the second half and a chance to make it 2. Barry Conlon hauled down inside the area, a cast-iron penalty. Conlon had put the last one into orbit against Peterborough, but had said he'd be happy to take the next one. He wasn't given a chance. Mark Ford took it instead, and at 2-0, Darlington looked to be home and dry. Again. But they couldn't deal with this long throw, and they paid the price. From 25 yards out, Kevin Mayer smashed one past Andy Collett. 2-1, Southend back in the game. And with a minute to go, they stole a point. A good old-fashioned charge upfield, the ball breaking kindly for Barrington Belgrave. End of the road for Tommy Taylor's Darlington in the FA Cup. That means Newcastle now face Peterborough United in round 4. Ever had the feeling you missed the boat? Well, tell it to the Darlington fans who were at last night's third-round replay. Pegged back from 2-0 up when the teams met at Feethams last week. This time they were never really in the hunt. Leon McKenzie was gifted Peterborough's opening goal 7 minutes into the second half. The Quakers held on until the very last minute before the dream of a north-east derby with Newcastle finally died. Andy Clark, the man who broke their hearts in the Wembley playoff final, did it again. So the Magpies head south for London Road on Sunday afternoon. Plenty of goals over at Feethams as well, with a Hartlepool All-Boy put in Luton in front. Steve Howard with the header, but Darlington drew level when Gary Pearson scored his very first league goal, even if there was a deflection. Luton went back in front on the hour thanks to their Frenchman, Jean-Louis Valois, and that should have been enough for their 10th away win of the season. But when top scorer Barry Conlon limped off, Quakers substitute Mark Shearen took the chance to become an instant hero. With 10 minutes to go, he tied it up at 2-2. And then, with time ticking away, the youngster looped in a fabulous header. 3-2 to Darlington. What a finish at Feethams. And the fans certainly seem to enjoy it.
They've seen a few goals at Feethams lately as well. There would have been more last night, but of Darlington keeper Andy Collett. He was injured making that save and had to be replaced by Keith Finch. Finch was making his league debut and had a great match, but he was beaten by Paul Morgan's header for Lincoln. The Imps had the advantage, but the Quakers had their super sub. Mark Shearen came off the bench to set up Paul Heckingbottom for the equaliser. Shearen had scored twice on his Darlington debut on Saturday, and he grabbed his night, the one you missed. Shearen's header in the 9th minute, and a 2-1 win for the Quakers.
Darlington 8 days, and early back in his native northeast, headed home Jean-Louis Valois, 30 in. Quakers were a little lucky to go in level at the break. Gary Pearson's free kick deflected past Mark Ovendale, but Pearson claimed his first. Even bit of magic from Valois, Luton's lead on the hour. From the former Lille midfielder, and after 3 goals in his first 4 games for the club, it snapped a match goal. But the Frenchman had to take second billing after Darlington Taylor brought 90 striker Mark Shearen off the bench, and within 8 minutes he pounced on Ovendale's parry to make it 2-2. And the Geordies' first goal was quickly followed by his second. 2 minutes from time, a clever looping header gave Darlington their first win of the year. Shearen was cheered off, but true to his trainee status, he still had to sweep out the dressing rooms afterwards.
It's from Division 3. Hartlepool were aiming to make it 3 wins in a row last night, while Darlington were in 4.
Darlington took just 55 seconds to score against Carlisle, though it was a bit too quick. Cameraman Mark Ford with his 6th of the season. The pitch beat and Darlington felt this was a penalty to match. Referee Harry Webb was spoilt for choice. 2 collisions, 1 spot kick. Tommy Taylor's players, though, were furious with the decision and Ford was booked for his protests. Richie Foran booked a place in the score sheets, 1-1. But Darlington fought back after the break. Lee Clark's strike edged them towards only a second league win away from home this season. Just to sure, Craig Little's impressive header is from full-time condemned Carlisle 6 games. Goals of Victor 1 better. Shrewsbury take an early lead thanks to Ian Woon's first to celebrate. Ross found leading goal scorer Barry Conlon to score his 8th of the current campaign. Ian Clark was next on the score sheet. A tremendous strike sealed his 2nd goal in 2 games. But just 3 minutes later, Shrewsbury hits back when Luke Rogers struck his 19th goal of the season. 2-2 and the visitors were soon leading when Steve Jajilka pounced just past the hour mark. But 13 minutes from full-time, substitute Richard Hodgson struck his 2nd of the season, 3-3. Darlington keeper Keith Finch made a fine save late in the match. It's now 6 goals in 2 games for Tommy Taylor's team.
Mansfield are one of the teams setting the Division 3 standards. No wonder, with David Kelly up front, the evergreen striker had the Stags ahead in 2 minutes. And it was the former Newcastle and Sunderland man who showed he'd learned a trick or two, crashing to the deck to earn a penalty. Wayne Corden rolled the ball into the other corner without too much bother. The Quakers soon earned their own penalty, though felt keeper Kevin Pilkington might have gone for felling Danny Mellenby. Not even a yellow card. Ian Clark took as much revenge as he could with his 5th goal of the season. But with little more than half an hour gone, it was 3-1. The long ball caught out the away defence, Chris Greenacre producing a top-quality strike to round off an excellent run. With 16 minutes to go, Darlington rallied, thanks to Clark's neat pass and substitute Mark Shearen again making an impact from the bench. But it was Kelly who was destined to have the last word with a clever angled header. You very often do get what you pay for in this world.
In 3, Hartlepool were making their last ever visit to Feethams. More than 6,000 turned out for the derby match with Darlington, and not too many went home disappointed.
A greasy pitch, a swirling wind and a hatful of chances for either side. Not a bad send-off for the old ground, 80 years after Poole first came calling in the old 3rd Division North. Anthony Williams kept out a shot from Barry Conlon. Paul Smith maybe should have hit the target before Darlington took the lead against the run of play 8 minutes from the break. And if there was one player that Poole didn't want to score, it was Ian Clark, the man they sold to Darlington back in November.
Did the lads on the Hartlepool team give you much stick during the game?
No. I mean, I've still got a few good lot of friends there. I mean, no, they were fine. I mean, they were just giving me a bit of banter after I'd scored, saying it had to be you, didn't it?
And if someone was going to score an equaliser, it surely had to be Adam Boyd, a teenage striker in form, but this time inches off target. There's a half-time competition at Feethams where a fan tries to hit the bar with 3 shots from the edge of the box. Steve Harper did it in 1 from 30 yards out. And having survived that near miss, Poole went straight up the other end and earned themselves a point. James Coppinger's ball to the back post, Mark Tinkler with the goal that tied it all up again. Conlon almost won it for the Quakers in the dying seconds, but a point apiece means both teams can still dream of the playoffs.
I think they've got 47 points now, we've got 42. Still a lot of points to go for, and we keep plugging away. It'd be nice to put our first team out. Since I've been here, I've never been able to put the first team out, and it'd be nice to do that by the end of the season, see how we get on.
We've got...
Darlington chairman George Reynolds wasn't at this match, and probably just as well. After Thursday night's dramatic fans forum, the players were glad just to get back out on the pitch. Neil Maddison scored his first for the club, and nobody outside of Devon would have denied the Quakers a lift. But Exeter spoiled the mood when Andy Roscoe scored this great equaliser. And there was no shortage of second-half action. Christian Roberts hit City in front thanks to this tremendous run and finish. And Darlington's players must have thought the whole world was against them when Exeter went 3-1 up. Roscoe with his second of the game. The Quakers pulled one back though when Neil Wainwright struck his fourth league goal of the season. But an away win was just asking too much after the previous 48 hours. Yes, Roberts sealed Exeter's 4-2 win, and a week Darlington fans will want to forget.
Up at the place where it's all been happening, Feethams.
Anyone who turned up expecting more fireworks from the Reynolds family would have been disappointed last night. Chairman George did the rounds before the start, but didn't get a particularly hard time from the crowd. By way of contrast, the Quakers players got a hero's reception as they ran out. But the first home game after that meeting, Mrs. Chairman's speech and the players' walkout was a tame affair watched by the lowest crowd of the season. To make matters worse, Macclesfield won. John Askey got the only goal. So how is everyone holding up behind the scenes at Feethams, especially George?
Chairman's fine. Chairman's fine. You know, it's, we've had a situation this week which isn't very nice, ain't very nice for the players, but we've just got to get on with it.
Mulby was at Boothbury Park, presumably to assess what's on offer at Hull. One wonders what he made of Justin Whittle's attempt to clear, or goalkeeper Paul Musselwhite's indecision before Barry Conlon added to the embarrassment by heading Darlington ahead. Hull were on top for much of the second half and were level when Gary Alexander raced through to score his 23rd goal of the season. But Darlington went to be denied. 17-year-old substitute Adam Rundle setting up Ian Clark. A nice finish by Clark, and Darlington 2-1 winners. 262 miles away at Darlington, Halifax had been hoping for a Kidderminster win, just to keep their hopes of survival alive. It didn't matter though, they limped lamely into the conference. Ian Clark putting Darlington ahead. Then Halifax conceded a penalty and had Matthew Clark sent off for deliberate handball. Clark then stepped up to score his second goal in 6 minutes and his third goal in 2 games. Darlington extended their lead after an hour. Barry Conlon heading in. 3-0. Darlington manager Tommy Taylor was impressed with his team's work rate, and Clark was particularly industrious, then setting up Mark Ford. Halifax were being run ragged. This was Darlington's biggest win of the season, and they rounded it off in the very last minute when Brian Atkinson's cross was headed in by Mark Shearen. Halifax are the first team to be relegated to the conference twice.
If Hartlepool have timed their challenge well, Scunthorpe's collapse couldn't have come at a worse time. Peter Bigre's early effort summed up their luck, but it's now just 2 points out of 15, and a playoff spot which did look in the bag is now dependent on others slipping up. Mark Jackson's challenge on Ian Clark certainly didn't help, and the striker got up to put the home side ahead with his 13th of the season, and Scunthorpe rarely looked like getting back on terms. In fact, their best spell came after Clark had exploited some shabby defending to make it 2-0 to Darlington 18 minutes from time. But Scunthorpe could only pull 1 goal back when Steve Torpey's quick free kick set up Martin Carruthers from close range. And now, even a win over York on the last day of the season may be too little, too late.
Well, last night it was party time at Feethams, where visitors Plymouth got the points they needed to wrap up the 3rd Division title.
It's an awful long way up to Darlington from Devon, but Argyle's travelling fans saw their team make sure of the silverware inside the opening half hour. A win was what they needed to leave Luton in 2nd place, and after Mickey Evans had given them a 10th-minute lead, man of the match Marino Keith made it 2-0 just 7 minutes later. Keith struck again on 28, and it was all over by the shouting, some of which was directed at Darlington chairman George Reynolds. He'd banned the football writer from the town's local newspaper from using the Feethams press box. Not that there was too much to write home about, apart from Ian Clark's first-half penalty. Skipper Craig Liddell has been told to take a pay cut or leave the club, and the word is that defender Paul Heckingbottom could follow him out. Just short of the hour, Jason Bent made it 4-1 to Plymouth. 30 minutes more and the celebrations could begin. Argyle can look forward to second division football next season. Who knows what the future holds for Darlington?
Oxford boss Ian Atkins has placed a summer clear-out after the U's lowest placing in their 40-year history. Jamie Brooks picked up 4 end-of-season awards, but even his goal just before the hour couldn't inspire his team. And Darlington won it with 2 goals in a 5-minute spell. This Glenn Naylor's first strike of a nightmare season. He's managed just 6 games after a cruciate ligament injury. Naylor was then subbed, and his replacement Mark Shearen didn't take long to announce himself. Even a late sending off for Mark Ford couldn't dampen Darlington's day.
They're getting ready to say farewell to Feethams. The Quakers are scheduled to move into their new stadium towards the end of the year, but the fans have made sure that they won't be leaving without saying a proper goodbye.
Parting will be such sweet sorrow, but all good things must come to an end, so to mark the move to a new home, the Darlington Supporters Trust are staging the Farewell to Feethams exhibition at the town's Arts Centre.